Hello, my name's Hannah from Manx Wildlife Trust. This is all to do with my role as community ranger. I am trying to engage more of the public with wildlife through community-led projects, and this is sort of the beginning of that. So I've been in my position since May, and I feel like now it's sort of really gearing up, and I'm actually doing sort of what I'm here to do. So on Monday and Tuesday we have our first community consultations. The first is at Lloyd's Bank at Villiers House on Monday at 6 o'clock, and the second one is at Oncombe Parish Hall at 7 o'clock. And it's an opportunity for us to meet with members of the community and to talk about if they have any ideas for areas around their homes and neighbourhoods that have potential for wildlife, which we can then work with them to improve.
So these sort of public areas we're talking about, in essence, like sort of, I don't know, patches of grassland or corners of parks, this sort of thing?
Yeah, so there's different aspects. So we're wanting to do this work using an Eastern community group, which we're hoping to establish from these consultations. We have a number of Manx Wildlife Trust projects that we would like the community group to lead. So we have our Oncombe Wetlands Reserve, and then we also have 2 new Manx Wildlife Trust projects, which are sort of like blank canvases, which we think that the community can do anything that they like with them as long as it helps wildlife. So there's that part of it, which are already established Manx Wildlife Trust projects. But then also, if people have ideas for areas around where they live, which could be public places or private places, then we can go ahead and look into that as well. We've got quite a good relationship with the commissioners. They're quite on board with it, and so we're sort of open to all ideas. But yes, starting actually with 3 Manx Wildlife Trust projects.
I was thinking exactly that, actually. I assume if you're talking about park areas in various parts of the island, you're going to have things like the local authorities on board with this.
Yeah, so I've had some really positive meetings with the Oncombe Parish Commissioners, and I'm meeting with the Braddon Commissioners this afternoon, and they're really on board. I think it's a great project it's for community bonding, getting people outside, helping their health and well-being, helping the wildlife, bringing people together. I think, obviously whatever we do will have to be okayed by the authorities and by other members of the community, but we've got a really good collaborative working relationship right now, so I think we could achieve some really good things.
And so is the idea then, if these groups get set up, like the Eastern Community Group you're mentioning there, would these be sort of self-governing to a degree? Would they sort of look after themselves and the work they're doing in their area?
Yeah, completely. So my role and the sort of engagement that I'm working in for Manx Wildlife Trust is all to do with community organisation, and it's about shifting the power to community members and making it so that they completely lead the projects. It will be under the umbrella of Manx Wildlife Trust, and we will help with sort of funding and tools and support, but we want these to be fully led, community-led projects. And so therefore, as long as the work is positive for wildlife and people, and it's approved by the authorities and other members of the community, it's really down to the community group what they'd like to do. 2 of the projects I mentioned earlier are, blank canvases. At the moment, they're just sort of unused bits of land. One of them is very overgrown, and at the moment it's not really serving much purpose for wildlife. And this could become, it could become an allotment, it could become a community orchard, it could become a garden. It's really up to whatever the community feels is best.
And what about working with businesses as well? Because obviously lots of businesses on the Isle of Man, I know quite a few of them have their own sort of ESG schemes or whatever, where they're involved in work sometimes in partnership with the Manx Wildlife Trust. Are we thinking about getting them involved as well?
Yes, definitely. So the first consultation, that's on Monday, this is being held at Lloyd's Bank in Villiers House in Douglas. The reason for this location is that we're working very closely with Lloyd's Bank International. Not only have they helped support my position, but we're also working with them on their rooftop garden in Douglas, turning it into a more wildlife-friendly space. We're going there in a couple of weeks and having some over lunchtime gardening sessions and working with the Lloyd's Bank colleagues and employees to improve that space. We're also working with Manx Radio to improve to improve the lawned area outside the studio. We're creating a wildflower meadow out of what was just quite a species poor area of grassland, and we would like to continue these sort of relationships with businesses throughout Douglas and the surrounding areas. Our vision is to create patches of wildlife friendly areas throughout this urban area, and working with businesses is a really big part of that. So whether it's a rooftop garden, a small area of lawn space, or even just putting up a series of window boxes, there's always something you can do to improve your site for wildlife.
I've been to that rooftop garden at Lloyd's once, and I love them because A, you have cracking views as well as the gardens there, and B, they're sort of secret gardens in their own way. They can be in the middle of towns, or I know there's plenty of really lovely ones in London as well. And basically, unless you know they're there, they're sort of completely private. Definitely,
and you just think if each of these spaces did something positive for wildlife, that's such a big footprint over the city. We've sort of got a vision of creating kind of like a pollinator map of Douglas, so we could get these businesses on the maps, and it would kind of show where the bees, where these secret little wildflower areas are and around the city. So it'd be great to get, at the moment we've got Manx Radio and Lloyds Bank International. It'd be great to get a couple of more businesses on that map.
As you say, you've been in post now since May. What sort of response have you been getting when you've been out and about during the last few months from members of the public? Are you sensing there is an enthusiasm now for more people to get involved in this sort of work?
Yeah, definitely. So while I've been out advertising these consultations, I've been putting posters up in the post offices, the library, local businesses and things, and chatting to people while I've been doing that. It seems like an idea that people are really keen to get involved with. I think it's not just about the wildlife, it's also about meeting your neighbours, doing something positive, getting outside. And it really doesn't matter if you aren't good at gardening, or if you're not very into sort of like physical work. We need people from all different backgrounds, so it's not just about sort of going out and doing the gardening. We need people who are creative and can vision what we want the project to end up with. We need people who are good managers, we need organisers. There's so many different roles that if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh well, I never do any gardening and I don't really like being outdoors, that doesn't really matter, because there's so many other different aspects to this project that you could get involved in. And I think it's just going to be a really nice opportunity to meet people who you live near to and do something positive.
And I do think as well, I think post-pandemic in many ways, that brought a lot of people to appreciate more the environment in which they live in, and thinking about, caring more about gardens, open spaces, wildlife, the ecology of their local area. It seems to have really stemmed a great interest in that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's something that definitely came out of the pandemic. We learned to appreciate the things that were nearer to us that we often overlook because we couldn't travel so far. So, maybe you didn't have a garden and there was just sort of a small area of green space just down the road, and you use that as your sort of place to go and read or get outdoors, and you might not have noticed it before. You might have walked past it every day, and then all of a sudden it sort of became a really special space. So it's kind of encouraged, like taking that on and just recognising those spaces even more, and now appreciating them and improving them for wildlife and making them even nicer.
So just give us the details again, and if people want to get along, how do they get involved?
So we've got 2 consultations. Monday is at Lloyds Bank Villiers House in Douglas. It's at 6:00 in the evening. Everyone is welcome. We will be discussing everything at this consultation, and we will also be talking about how businesses can get involved, such as Manx Radio and Lloyds Bank International. The second consultation is on Tuesday, the 6th of September. This is at 7:00 at Oncombe Parish Hall. And that one will be less about the businesses and just more about the community. I'll also be at the ferry terminal in Douglas on Saturday and Sunday, so that's the 10th and 11th of September. I'll be there with just a little Manx Wildlife Trust stall. If you're in the area and you couldn't make the consultations but you'd still like to come and say hello and show your interest, then please drop by and let's have a chat. And if you're away for the whole week and can't make any of those dates, then you can always email me, and my email address is hannah@mwt.im, and I can get you on my contact list, or if you've got any suggestions, it's always great to hear from you.